Alright, this should just be a quick little follow-up video, but welcome back to Honored Madman, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. I think it was yesterday or the day before I released a video on the fingercreepers and the Lamprey, so I'm not going to retread old ground, but I mistakenly assumed that the Lamprey were like some sort of true offspring of the mother of fingers, and they might be, but allow this video to present an alternative possibility as to their origins. And I mean, sure, they could have hatched from those eggs, but some might view that as too simple, so this is a much more complicated, bizarre origin for them. You could say I got inspired after watching a fellow YouTuber's video on the subject. So I watched Zully the Witch's video on the parasitic lampreys, and I was, as always, impressed. But it also gave me several ideas of my own regarding the lampreys and the fingercreepers, and it also made me want to fix a couple things I said in the previous video. So I decided, why not make a follow-up? It can't take me too long. And of course, Zully's video was great. It was concise, it was to the point, and it had great footage. And I'm not going to retread the points from that video either. You guys know me, I'll make a mistake, and occasionally, just occasionally, I'll feel this unscratchable itch of a need to correct it. And in this case, it was saying definitively, speaking in what's called absolutes, that the Lamprey must be the direct offspring of Metyr, the mother of fingers, when that might not actually be the case. Oh, another one is that it's been so long since I fought Metyr that I forgot that she quite literally births fingercreepers in the fight. So obviously, fingercreepers are direct offspring from the finger mother. The finger weavers themselves may have been able to birth fingers as well, but they seem to have been imperfect and often died young. There were still probably a bunch of mushroom-addled freaks. But the fingerprint nostrum seems to be something that they mistakenly thought would change them directly into fingers, and it instead gave them a wicked parasite. And I mean, you can't really blame them. These guys were high 24/7 on mushrooms, weird finger mimic shaped mushrooms that apparently are a real thing in real life as well. These guys were desperate to be able to birth fingers of their own, and some of them were able to do that, like Ymir, but other ones were desperate enough to drink the fingerprint nostrum, which translates to like a fake medicine type of thing, like snake oil, I believe. Again, I'm not trying to retread all of Zully's video. Now, I think these guys actually would take this medicine to ease the sicknesses they got from eating all the mushrooms. But this weird combination of this fake medicine made of, well, let's check. So it takes 3 dew gems, a beast horn, a finger mimic, the mushroom, and a pearlescent scale. So it could of course be the mushrooms, but notice how the nostrum also calls for a pearlescent scale, which is only found on Lamprey, so I guess it's kind of a what came first, the chicken or the egg type of scenario. So nothing's really certain, but I think it's safe to say the mushrooms are at least a key factor in developing these parasites. Shit, maybe that's even what causes the hallucinations. And this is of course just speculation in the same way that the previous video was. No one really knows definitively. And since these only grow in places stained by the Greater Will's fingerprint, the Lamprey can technically be viewed as an extremely indirect and distant offspring of the space god. So I guess I did have them wrong in the last video. The fingercreepers are the close relatives of the Greater Will, and the Lampreys are the bizarre offshoots. And a good deal of these guys were skilled sorcerers, which explains why the Lampreys can cast magic. It looks like they, kept some parts of the human physiology, in this case the arms and legs, that normal Lamprey in real life don't have. Which of course reminds me of the titular alien from the iconic indie movie Alien. It sort of takes aspects of its original host into its new evolved form. In this case, these lampreys, they sprout limbs in the image of their original host, or their host undergoes a sort of metamorphosis because of the parasite, which I kind of think is the more likely. Like, they do kind of lose almost everything that made them human originally, and the parasite does take full control. But like I said, they keep some aspects and then they lose the rest, like shedding a skin, if you will. Of course, it could straight up be like Alien and that a new being emerges from the husk of the original. I think both possibilities are just as likely as the other, and most of them look like they've shed a skin. Maybe some of them have recently sprouted from people who ate the The mushrooms combined with the nostrum, a deadly combination. So there it is. There's the alternative possibility that the finger weavers, instead of becoming the birthers of finger creepers, instead just became lampreys, or just became what's called hosts for them. That is until the parasite grew big enough and sort of just bursts its way on out of them. Now, personally, I tend to think that the answer lies somewhere in the middle, what actually happened with the lamprey. It's like a parasitic metamorphosis, if you will. It started out as a parasite taking over, and it eventually became like a new creature altogether. And it would explain why they've all got like this gunk, this like freshly shed skin sort of thing going on. It could be remains of their original host. There's definitely a lot of possibilities with this new parasite idea. Or perhaps it's some sort of parasitic metamorphosis. It's a little bit of both, a transformation and it's a parasite taking over it. And speaking of parasite, when I uploaded the video yesterday while I was waiting for it to upload, I was on Reddit and I saw this great idea that there was a connection between the worm faces of the base game and the lamprey of the DLC. And they definitely got a similar posture, and that made me start thinking maybe the worm faces are individuals who basically they had the wriggling lamprey parasite inside them, but were brought to the Erdtree or Golden Order healing was used to attempt to expel these parasites, and instead the end result was the worm face. That's why they're still visibly more humanoid than the lampreys, but they're in this sort of halfway point before the human skin is finally shed and the final form, the lamprey, emerged. And since America sealed the rune of death and these guys are just constantly expelling these nasty parasites, they can't truly die. When I was first examining them, I noticed all these little hole-like things on their neck, and I started instantly thinking, oh, those must be the eye holes that emerge on the lampreys. But then I started thinking, these are worm-riddled, plagued, unfortunate individuals. Those holes are probably just from the worms and the parasites that are living within them. They do, on the other hand, have the very same mouth, or very similar one at least, as the lampreys, and a very similar grab animation. And the gangly limbs do certainly add up, but this is, of course, just a theory. Outside of all that, it does sort of make you wonder how they came into contact with the death blight. And, you know, being stuck in this state of stagnation is what led to them, you know, developing the death blight. Or perhaps they started eating death root. Or maybe these guys just got so desperate that they tried to use death root or death blight as a way to kill the parasites. And who's to say if they did that to themselves, or if there was some sort of perfumer doctors that forcibly did this to them. Maybe the perfumers decided that, hey, we don't know what to do with this death root, but we can feed it to these guys who are halfway turned into these nasty lamprey parasite things. Hell, it might even cure them. There's definitely a million possibilities there, and I could probably make a whole separate video about that, which again, I know I say that all the time. I also wanted to say, just because I'm making this video, it doesn't instantly invalidate or make the previous one out of date or anything like that. There's still plenty of ideas in that video that I am fully attached to. This is just me getting inspired to make a little lore video after watching a contemporary or a colleague's lore video on YouTube. It gave me some ideas that I felt the need to follow up on. But Zoe the Witch has always been a source of inspiration for the channel, so nothing new there. But yeah, aside from being severely wrong about Meteor's capability to birth finger creepers, and maybe a couple other things, I stand by most of those points. But I also wanted to add a couple great insights I learned from the comments from my video. I mean, shit, that's how I was reminded that Meteor was able to birth finger creepers as well. You know, completely skewering right in the dead center, one of my little theories in that very same video. But someone in the comments suggested that maybe all the hands were at Carrion Manor because they were there looking for Ranni. And I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense. I'm not completely sold on it because they do seem to be guarding the place like watchdogs, but it's not something I'm going to rule out. I mean, we don't really know the exact relationship with the hands and the two fingers. The Carrions might have just kept finger creepers as pets because their mom learned from a wacky old finger weaver. And I read somewhere someone said that Ymir wasn't able to become a finger mother until Meteor died, in which he took power from her, and again, that's definitely a possibility. But I always thought that before Meteor even died, he was already birthing little finger creepers, just most of them died before they reached adulthood, but maybe not all of them. I do have to assume that that's what most of the graves in the graveyard are for, though. I mean, when you first show up, I think he tells you to watch your step and don't step on the child. So he's definitely been able to birth at least a few fingercreepers. And then after stealing power supposedly from Metyr, he's able to birth full ones, those medium-sized ones during the fight with him. It's tough to say if everything he says is true in his fun little dialogue options, but he's definitely a well voice-acted character. But anyways, there was a couple things I forgot to mention in the last video, like the Colossal Finger Creeper and the Hinterland's Finger Ruins. I also forgot to talk about how the Lampreys have this like poison vomit attack, which is probably from eating those toxic mushrooms that they also drop. It also makes them even more reminiscent of the snakes of Mount Gelmir with the whole extendo neck move. And the one other thing, I don't know if I saw it in a comment or on Reddit, but someone pointed out that the eyes of the Lamprey all depict a different emotion. Now these weird eyes are in place of little nostril breathing holes that actual sea lamprey have, but I just thought it was interesting that these guys are in complete equilibrium with all of their emotions. They have ascended. And sure, two of the emotions might be the same, and this could just be from the way that they bend their neck, making it look like each eyes are showing something different. But regardless, it's a nice touch. Oh yeah, one final thing I wanted to mention was that some people have said there must be some sort of a connection between the lamprey and the ghostly eels that sprout from the ground in the Cerulean coast and other places. And to this I say it's definitely, it's got to be a possibility. Outside of their eel-like appearance, though, there isn't much connection. But if you look around in Metyr Mother Fingers Arena, you'll see all these weird tubes that extend into the what looks like the surface of an ocean, and you appear to be at the bottom of said ocean. Maybe you're like in a microcosm, right? And those things are like sprouting out from it, and you're actually super small when you're fighting Metyr, and Metyr itself is super small. And those big old tubes extending into the heavens are actually the spirit eels. That's the crackpot theory for the video. But in reality, they're probably just tunnels that Metyr uses to unleash her offspring upon the world. But that's enough theorizing for today. I wanted to keep this video short. So I'll end things by saying that in many ways, the curious origins or evolutions of the Lamprey are sort of reflective of Elden Ring's world as a whole. Think about it, this is a place where actual gods and demigods walked the earth and went to war with each other. And on top of that, much like Bloodborne, this world is drowning in the otherworldly influence of unfathomable alien forces. Think like the Reapers of Mass Effect, only much weirder. More finger-based. And the game itself is set in the aftermath, so the world is sort of like a consequence of all these things that happened before it, making the place itself feel very, immersive, like it's got a real history to it. But that's the whole thing with Elden Ring. You are playing in the aftermath of several different epics that have all happened, eons before you set foot back in the lands between. As George R.R. Martin would say, it's the scouring of the Shire. It's Aragorn's policies. It's like a microcosm of that sort of thinking. But that goes for a lot of things in this game, though, doesn't it? Almost everything, to be exact. I guess that's what makes it all feel so George Martinian. Elden Ring very much is the aftermath of a great and epic story. It's actually the aftermath of several great and epic stories, an epic lineage, if you will, of violence. But with that, I can already see that I'm getting off topic, and I believe I covered all the bases I wanted to in this sort of correction video. So let's have our outro, and then we'll save all the plugs and stuff for that for after. Alright, so up next we got the Melina and Mesmer video. Then I got one on the Amana Pyros that might actually come out first. Then after that we got another big one. I'm going to try to cover every boss from the DLC, or at least the important ones, the unique ones, in a similar way to that video I did about the demigods like almost 3 years ago, so that should be fun. Oh yeah, as always, if you like the video, please consider liking it. If you dislike it, please dislike it. And if you like hearing me ramble on about these various lore topics, then please consider subscribing. And if you feel like supporting the channel, I just opened up a Patreon, which I will link in the description. Who wouldn't want to subscribe to a channel that has to make correction videos on their own videos shortly after they're released? I think it takes dedication, and trust me, there's plenty of other older videos and some not so older ones that I want to do corrections on, but this one felt pretty urgent. But yeah, I'm going to try and keep this momentum up. I got a bunch of videos planned, and then I also got the prospect one I've been wanting to do for like 2 years, so that one I should just get done. But with all that, I should probably get back to work, and I will see you guys next time.